In 2021, Ukraine exported a record $68.24 billion worth of goods. This record will definitely remain unbroken for years or maybe decades to come. Why? Definitely because of the war Ukraine is facing against Russia. So what did this war cause, and where was Ukraine before that war? A brief history of Ukraine tells us that it was part of the Soviet Union, and after its independence in 1991, it had close ties with Russia, both politically and economically. Gradually, these ties started to loosen when the Ukrainian governments over the years started shifting towards the West, or to be more accurate, the West started shifting towards Ukraine. Russia has always considered Ukraine more than an ally. It has considered it part of Russia. That is why when Russia felt that Ukraine was drifting away, it re-annexed Crimea in 2014, claiming it back after the Soviet leadership gifted it to Ukraine in 1954. In the annexation speech, the Russian president declared that Russians and Ukrainians are one people. Kiev is the mother of Russian cities. Ancient truth is our common source, and we cannot live without each other. In 2016, 2 years after the annexation, Russia's then Prime Minister, Dmitry Medvedev, states that there has been no state in Ukraine, neither before nor after the 2014 crisis. Tension between the two nations rose gradually, and none of the parties tried to ease it, and the West added fuel to the fire by encouraging Ukraine to speed up the process of joining the NATO. That, of course, fumed Russia, which found itself forced to invade Ukraine in an effort to change the situation. Russia never called it a war, it called it a special military operation. Needless to say that the war has caused the biggest wave of refugees in Europe since World War II. What did Ukraine achieve by insisting on joining the NATO? Well, practically nothing, neither politically nor economically. Quite the contrary. Ukraine exported more than $3 billion worth of goods to Russia in 2021 and $65 billion to other countries. All this is currently fading away, and the economic ties that the Ukraine has had with Russia are gradually loosening. Ukraine is rich in natural resources like lithium, kaolin, natural gas, and timber. It has abundant reserves of coal, iron ore, manganese, salt, oil, graphite, sulfur, titanium, nickel, magnesium, and mercury. To export these, it has 13 seaports in addition to many river ports. The biggest and only deep water port is the port of Odessa. The Russian Navy in the Black Sea and the Ukrainian defensive mines are shutting it completely. Its fifth largest port in Mariupol is also closed as Russia currently dominates the Black Sea. Port closures have had their toll on the economy, since about 70% of Ukraine's total imports and exports are carried out by sea, 65% being made through the port of Odessa, which links Ukraine's products to the global economy. Ukraine is the largest wheat exporter in the world. Actually, it was the largest in 2021. Today, it is facing a big problem. Export has almost stopped, and it is not well equipped to store all these produces, especially that the country's grain silos are mostly full of last winter's crop, which would have normally been exported by now. If the grain cannot get out by sea, it will have to travel by road and rail via Poland, Romania, and Hungary. But the roads cannot handle that much heavy traffic, mainly because Ukraine is not a member of the European Union, which imposes heavy rules and customs on it. Customs and phytosanitary checks are already causing 10-kilometer tailbacks at entry points. The EU rules say that only a limited number of its trucks can enter. Before the war, Ukraine's economy was growing at an annualized pace of 7%. The export of grain, iron, and steel yielded strong revenues, and its well-regulated banking industry led to a deficit of less than 3% of GDP last year. The World Bank has predicted that Ukraine's GDP will shrink by around 45% in 2022. Another problem is the military salaries. All in all, Ukraine is losing $5 billion every month that the war goes on. Of course, grants have been coming from the West, totaling a bit less than $5 billion, but the gap is much bigger and is still widening by the minute. This problem can be temporarily treated by having the central bank print more money, which will increase the inflation. The government could also issue war bonds, on which the government currently is paying around 11%, which is less than the inflation rate. Well, a bonus piece of information for those who are still with us. Ukraine has had a very promising tourism industry, which was also affected by the war. It was ranked the 8th most popular tourist destination in Europe, which accounted for 1.4% of Ukraine's GDP in 2021.